Okay, so I am going to ask you 5 questions, and I want you to see how many of these 5 questions are true for you. Number one, do you find yourself in situations where you are often caretaking of others in relationships? And by caretaking, this could be emotionally caretaking. This could be financially caretaking. This could be planning everything for you and the person you're in a relationship with, where basically you are always doing a lot more of the work. Number two, do you find yourself really taking on other people's feelings and finding even further than that, that you have a hard time seeing people in pain? Maybe you're even empathetic to a fault. And when I say empathetic to a fault, what that actually means is that you're in a situation where you may weaponize your own empathy against yourself. You may find yourself being so empathetic that you do so much for other people, literally at the expense of yourself until you run your own resources dry. Okay, so number two, really to summarize, are you really empathetic to the point where you use your own resources up? Number three, do you feel responsible for other people that you're close to? Maybe from a place of loyalty, or maybe from a place of like, I have to show up for them. I have to be there for them. I have to sacrifice for them, or almost like you're the dog in everybody else's fight. So, number three, do you feel overly responsible for other people's lives? Number four, do you often end up in relationships where you feel like you are dragging the other person? Maybe you're trying to get them motivated, get them up and running. Like it's almost like you're trying to constantly motivate or inspire or help soothe somebody 24/7 or be there for them. So you're putting out a lot of the effort and potentially not getting the same amount of effort in reciprocity back. And number five, do you actually secretly sometimes feel yourself feeling unseen or unheard, or like you just don't have an equal partner in your life or even in your friendships? And maybe that actually causes you to feel alone in various ways, like you have to do everything all the time. Well, if this is you, you may struggle with something called mothering or fathering in relationships. And we're going to unpack exactly what that is. We're going to talk about the benefits, the drawbacks, the root causes, and this literally may completely change the way you see yourself and your relationships forever. Now, if you're new to this channel, my name is Thais, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm really excited to share this topic with you today. I think this is such an important topic. And if you enjoy this video, please consider subscribing and sticking around. I put daily videos here about our subconscious mind, relationships, and how we can really do the work to create healing and powerful transformation in our lives. So let's take a look at some of the root causes if you find yourself in this parental role in relationship dynamics with others. Well, one of the big first causes, as you can imagine, is enmeshment in childhood. If you grew up in a system where you were made to feel constantly responsible for other people, maybe you were taught by your culture or the system that you grew up in as a family that you should be taking care of everybody else. Everybody has to sacrifice for each other. That's what family is and does. Rather than, hey, everybody should have a healthy, strong sense of self and healthy boundaries. And from that healthy, individuated sense of self where we know ourselves, we've tuned into our truth, and we have healthy boundaries, we then support each other from this stable foundation. And a lot of times, if you're in this family system where it's like, hey, you should self-sacrifice all the time, you end up being in a place where you don't know who you are. Who you are bleeds into everybody around you and vice versa. And that can actually prevent us from really developing this strong sense of truth. And in fact, it will often cause us to have this deep-rooted fear of abandonment or of being betrayed or seeming like a bad person because we don't feel like we know who we are deep down. And thus, our sense of self seems to feel like it's completely dependent on people outside of us. Another big root cause that you may see is if you were parentified in childhood. And what this actually means is that you grew up in a childhood dynamic where you were the caretaker at a young age. Perhaps you had a parent who struggled with addiction or parents who were constantly fighting all the time. In any of those cases or anything like those cases, you may see that you are playing the emotional caretaking role, checking on everybody, making sure everybody's all right, really playing the parent role as a child. And because this will feel familiar to you, because it's a comfort zone at your subconscious level of mind, well, because your subconscious mind is actually responsible for roughly 95% to 97% of all of our beliefs and thoughts and emotions and actions and choices in our lives, you may find yourself actually attracted to people in your adult life who also make you feel like you're doing that, also make you feel like you're playing the parent role, rather than having equal partnership and reciprocity. Another root cause you may see before we go into some really, really surprising facts that may literally revolutionize the way that you're seeing your relationships going forward is that maybe you've had negative associations. Maybe you grew up in a household where somebody was really powerful and they scared you. And maybe you're afraid of power in other people because of negative feelings or associations you made to it in childhood. So you only feel safe with people you have to take care of. An example of this could be if you had a really overbearing parent or a parent who really struggled with anger issues. Well, their power may have made you feel really bulldozed. And if you felt small and afraid, you may go, okay, I don't want to be around situations like that. So you make up this negative viewpoint about power as a whole. And as a result of that, you may feel like you are not attracted to healthily empowered people. And so you choose to opt for people who have lost their power that you have to take care of because it feels like that's safer. So, what are yours so far? Before we even dive into some really shocking facts, both benefits and then the drawbacks and what you can do about this if you find yourself in these situations. Please share in the comments if you feel like sharing or have something interesting to share so far, what you scored on those first 5 questions out of 5, like how many of them lined up for you, and what your negative experiences were that may have caused this kind of dynamic for you in childhood that led to these types of relationships as an adult. Now, there are actually some cool benefits here. And I'm not saying that this is an overall healthy thing. I actually think this is a pattern we want to break through. But some benefits is that you probably, because you grew up really fast and because you end up in these caretaking situations, you probably know how to persevere through hard situations really well. You're probably really strong mentally, emotionally, whatever, in whichever ways. And you're probably pretty aware of your own strength and ability to get through hard things. You may even do well with challenges that are outside of your comfort zone because that may actually be something in an ironic way that is comfortable to you. So, stretching yourself, having to deal with things on the fly or having to deal with chaos, even though that's uncomfortable in the moment, according to your conditioning and what you grew up in, that might be familiar. And thus, there may be this ironic sense of comfort in it still, which can help you be somebody who rolls with the punches and grows through challenges. But there are major drawbacks. And there are 5 major ones that I really want to cover here with you so that you can take a look at some of these things and take an honest inventory about if this is healthy for you or not, and what you can do to actually change some of these relationship dynamics if you start recognizing, wait, I don't want to continuously repeat these patterns any longer. So, number one, this is a great recipe for burnout. If you are the parent in your relationships, even in your friendships, your family relationships, this is a great recipe for you to get burnt out because if you don't have boundaries and if you are constantly giving of yourself, that will result in ultimately some form of exhaustion. Number two, literally, you may find yourself constantly feeling under pressure, overwhelmed, stressed because you are taking on likely way more than one single person is designed to handle. In fact, you may even be somebody who has children and then feels like you're also the parental role with your partner, and then also feels like you play this role with other people that you know, friends, family members, etc. And that can feel really stressful at times if you're not aware of it. Number three, if you are in this role and you are not having reciprocal relationships, you're not having equal partnerships in your life, be it again with friends or family or romantic partners, then you're basically people pleasing. And that is the ultimate breeding ground for resentment. Number four, you're not going to feel like you're getting loved in the way that you need. And I want you to just be honest with yourself about this one. If you're constantly doing this, part of you is trying to earn love from somebody else by doing things for them. And maybe even part of you is trying to avoid abandonment. by doing things for everybody else and feeling like I am safe if I'm giving more than I'm receiving. I'm safe from abandonment or from being seen like I'm not good enough or unworthy. And I want you to check in with yourself there and see, is that something that rings true? Because that's a painful thing to feel. And last of all, you may find that you aren't feeling like you are seen by other people, understood, or cared for. And you probably don't feel like people are showing up for you the way that you show up for others. And that can create this deep sense, not necessarily of loneliness, because it's not a void of connection, but a deep sense of aloneness, which is the sense like you have to constantly do it all on your own. So, what do you do? And in case you missed it, you can now reserve your spot and get more than a 50% early bird discount for our live relationship coach certification program. Launching October 28th, 2024, this 12-week program gives you the opportunity to build a new career, create your own thriving coaching practice, help your community, and secure your financial future full of abundance with a growing waitlist of clients. And the best part is that you get to spend a whole bunch of time with me as I teach you exclusive subconscious reprogramming tools and help you learn how to change somebody's attachment style from insecurely attached to securely attached so that you can truly help create transformation in people's lives and have a wait list of people waiting to work with you. We also have an entire business week about how to build funnels, systems, and to really build a thriving and busy practice. You can sign up using the link down below the video, and I can't wait to see you there. So what do you do? If you're seeing yourself in so much of this video, if you've seen yourself in like at least 70, 80% of these patterns, what do we do? Well, number one, you actually have to practice giving to yourself the way you give to others. And this can look like you showing up for a really healthy morning and evening routine. This can look like you actually getting into a situation where you honor your needs and you figure out what actually recharges you for once, and you intentionally schedule in advance or carve out time for it. The reason you have to schedule this in advance, I'm going to give you 2 or 3 other solutions here in a moment. The reason you have to schedule this in advance is because if you don't, then what ends up happening instead is you are just going to fall by the wayside because you're going to get used to your patterns. You're going to forget about yourself because you're not used to looking out for yourself. And then you're going to feel like, wait, what about me? So, number one, find out your needs, schedule time for them in advance. I actually have a fully free course you can check out just for a limited time, all about discovering your own needs, what they are, what recharges you, fills you up. I'll put the link just for that limited time down below. Number two, the next really important thing to do here is to take a look at what your needs are from other people. Okay. What do I need to feel like I actually am seen or cared for in my relationships around me? And honestly, I want you to put this into 2 columns. Column number one, list out some needs. I need encouragement sometimes or validation. I need reciprocity. I need, somebody to take turns paying the bills when we go out for dinner. I need to, make a list of exactly those things. Okay. And in column number two, I want you to actually take the time to take inventory of who's meeting those things in your life at all. And maybe even take a look at like, are there some people who I literally don't even get to ask these things from anybody because they would just say no. And I want us to evaluate your relationships that way. Like, let's take a real look at what kind of impacts that's having. And then number three, and I think this is so important, is you have to practice in small doses communicating your needs to other people. This can just be, in small ways over time. You don't have to do it all overnight because that will be scary. And I totally get that. But it's called exposure work. And the idea is that you incrementally expose yourself to doing things slightly outside of your comfort zone in this area until you start getting more comfortable. Like riding a bike. At first, it's terrifying. And then you do it a few times and you have a few ups and downs. And then eventually, it's comfortable. Okay. So we're going to familiarize your subconscious mind with doing this. Last but not least, and so important, we need to do some boundary work. Okay. So I want you to look at what should my boundaries be in these types of situations? Where am I giving too much? And how can I reel it in a little bit? So I'm also honoring my truth. And I want us to think of giving from a place of contribution rather than fear. And so what I mean by this is that sometimes we will give from a place of like, I have to give to earn my worth instead of I am giving because this feels good for me. I've taken inventory and, I would love to give to this person. And think of an analogy this way. If you have $10,000 in your bank account and somebody asks you for $5, you might feel really good about giving that $5. You're like, wow, hopefully I helped that person. Hopefully their day changed. And you feel that like sense of abundance, like truth, like I gave and it felt so good to contribute. But if you have $7 in your bank account and somebody asks you for $5 and you have a compulsive fear of saying no, and you just think you should be doing this and you should be sacrificing at the expense of yourself because that's what loyalty is. The moment that in 6 months you need $3 from that person and they say no, or the moment that that person's cold or harsh to you after you sacrificed, you're not going to feel good. And those are the breeding grounds from resentment. And in those cases, you're giving in a self sacrificial way. So the yes to somebody else is actually a no to yourself. So that's giving from fear of abandonment, fear of saying no and seeming like a bad person, whatever it might be for you, that underlying subconscious fear. We don't want to be giving from that place. So again, if you want to check out that fully free course for a limited time, all about needs, that can be a great starting point. Or if you want to ask me any questions you have in the video in the description, the comments down below, please put what your patterns are, how you experience these things. And if you want more content like this, ask me those questions. I'll come back in and read the comments, and I will make an effort to make future videos about this topic more and more. Thank you so much for watching and for stopping by. I'm so excited that hopefully this might have impacted you in some way or given you some powerful information or things to think about. I hope you subscribe and stick around. I make pretty much daily videos here, and I look forward to seeing you in the future ones.